There are a ton of types of wristlets out there. You can get really expensive ones that have some bling on them. You know, they have the snap bracelet kind that the kids love, and they have some that have pearls on them and things. But for my class purposes, I like to order these bulk elastic ones. I just find it the cheapest. I see other people like to use these little Velcro ones. The only time I use these are in preparation for a contest, because there are a couple of the field days that we go to that use the Velcro. So I'll introduce that to my team. But for class purposes, I always like to practice on these. I'm even kind of cheap and tell the kids if they don't want to take it or do anything with them, I will have the kids just rip off the whole thing and then we recycle them. That way that they're not going to waste. You also don't have to necessarily use wire. I know in a competition once, my floral judging team freaked out because they said, we didn't have any wire to get the bow together. Well, that's simple, okay? And you don't have to use wire. All you have to do is take another piece of the same ribbon, okay? And you're going to thread it through just like you did with the wire through the back. Okay, it takes a little more talent because you have lots of little hands here going. And you're just gonna do a double knot, okay? And you might have to get creative and use your teeth, I tell the kids. But yeah, you just tighten it down. And I almost prefer this, which you could do it over the wire, but I almost prefer it because then you're hiding your mechanics, okay? So you definitely don't have to use wire. I suggest it, especially when you're first teaching it. But I just wanted to show you that quick little trick that we learned in the middle of a crisis to attach your bow making, okay? So there are a ton of accessories you can add to your corsages to make them really fun. And I just encourage you to honestly hit the Dollar Tree and find some silly things for the kids to experiment with. Sometimes I will just put out random challenges to my students. They said they feel like they're in the show Chopped, but for flowers. But I think encouraging kids to think outside of the box and do fun stuff. So an example is sometimes I'll put out these crazy little feathers, okay? It could be really fun to do this, popping out of maybe an all black and white. Sometimes I will have them pull out of a hat a color scheme. Like after we learn the color wheel, I'll say, okay, one of you gets a monochromatic, right? And you have to do something all in that same color. And it really challenges the kids, right? But they have fun with it. They're really proud of what they do. And then it's taking some of these design principles that they've learned, maybe out of the textbook or something, and applying it into floral design, which is what we want, okay? You could even do really fun stuff. I've been hired for a wedding before to do peacock feathers. You can buy stuff from your floral vendor or the craft store with little pearls popping out. They have things like this crazy wire. Okay, you can get really fun and creative with this. I've seen students that will ball it up. This, and you can get this from your floral vendor or you can get it from the craft store, okay? And so they take this and you can just literally ball it up, okay, and create a little spherical shape, something crazy out of it, kind of balling it. And you can glue that into your corsage, right? You could also do something a little more formal with it and create little curlicues by doing them around and around, okay? So this wire is really fun with jewelry making, but I encourage you guys to buy some for your kids and put them out in the middle of this lab. They really enjoy it, okay? So another little tip that I wanted to put out there that I've come across in my time is what to do with these little metal clips. I encourage the kids to leave them. I think it's a great, I call it real estate, or more area for the kids to glue their corsage onto. I know for competitions, some people, like some of the judges like to see those covered, okay? So you can take some floral tape. This is not my favorite technique, and so we will only do this for competitions, but not weddings and things. But in order to cover your mechanics, they will take some of this floral tape and just kind of wrap it around to hide that. The problem that I find with that is, one, it's time consuming. Two, it's adding to your costs, right? Because it's bottom line, you have a customer who's typically buying these unless it's a lab. And the floral tape is not as sticky with the Oasis glue. So this is not my favorite thing, but I did wanted to let you know, since we're doing a corsage tips and tricks, that sometimes people like to do that. The other thing that I've seen people do, and when I'm doing this, sometimes I do it, is you'll rock these back and forth several times and they'll pop off typically. You can also fold them. Okay, you can fold them just right over. I see they're not going to break for me. You can just fold them right over too if you don't like the look of that. I typically, when I do it, I'll leave them open. I'll glue my flowers down and then I'll use it to kind of clamp and secure that in a little bit more and hide them as long as they're not too ugly. If you are finding that funds for fresh flowers are a challenge, I really like to think outside of the box on how to use silk flowers. And so sometimes when we're just not getting a lot of events, maybe it's the beginning of the school year, I will have kids make a corsage out of silk flowers. And so if you run out of these little rings that are on floral tape, save them. I have a little stockpile that I keep because they make the most perfect little bracelet, which is what this is, for a corsage for kids. And they just think it's really crazy that you're repurposing, right? And for this, I don't use floral glue. I do bring out my hot glue guns. And so what I'll do is I'll get one of these little rings per kid. You don't have to use one of these, but they think it's kind of fun. And the kids will cover it with ribbon. I encourage them to just use the same type of ribbon. And look, I have my cheaper ribbon with this, the florist ribbon. And they'll cover it and hot glue that so it's completely covered first, okay? And then you're just teaching the same technique, right? So you're gonna make that bow base, but then kids are gonna fill it in with silk flowers. And you may or may not use the filler flower, that's up to you. I think sometimes I'll give the kids the options depending on what kind of product I have. But I don't know about you guys, but I get silk flowers donated all the time. They're really easy to get at Dollar General or the Dollar Tree, okay? So, and the kids like it because they don't go bad, right? So the first lab, sometimes I will bust these out on the kids. You can also have a lot of fun with, again, thinking outside of the box, things like tulle, right? So all it takes is one little chunk of these rolls of tooling. You know, I did it about, again, 6 inches in length. You bunch it up and you're gonna wire it right on top. You can put it anywhere you want, but I like to wire it right on top of my other bow and take a silk flower. You're gonna glue that right in the center and it just adds a cute little touch to it. Just something kind of fun and different. Again, I don't have brides asking for this, but it's really fun in prom season. I don't know if you guys can see that great. It's really fun during prom season to offer different options. Tooling is so cheap. You can get all the colors with the little bling and stuff, and it really is pretty inexpensive to add. You can also use fake succulents, right? People love succulents. I love succulents. I have them growing in the greenhouse. I like to add them as an option when you're doing them in corsages, but you know, they have a lot of great little fake looking ones. I don't know how well the colors look here, but you could totally add that as a pop of little color. Just something fun. Kids can keep them forever and they really like that aspect, okay? So what is the difference between the glues? That was something I really wanted to cover, okay? So I like to talk about this in class, but it's really important that when you're using floral adhesive or you're using glue for fresh flowers that you use a floral adhesive, okay? Why wouldn't you use a hot glue? Well, the biggest thing is that we typically will make corsages ahead of time in boutonnieres, right? They'll go in our floral fridge, and unfortunately, I've seen this too many times. Hot glue will get cold in our floral fridges and they fall apart. Okay, so it's really important that you're using a floral adhesive. The best thing to do is that you have a little half sheet of cardstock. My school supplies cardstock, so that's really nice to have because this glue gets everywhere. I tell the kids that it runs like syrup, right? And they like to lose the caps. So important that you tell those kids, do not lose those caps. I have used so many different ways to try and keep this contained from going dry. Toothpicks, saran wrap, you name it. And there's really nothing like the cap, okay? So I always threaten they're gonna get 50% off if they lose their cap too. And make sure they're keeping this cardstock down because it will save your tables. Otherwise, it's so difficult to get them off, okay? So sometimes the kids struggle with holding this in their hand or doing it on the table. And so I will let them get a spray paint can which if you don't have spray paint, I encourage you to get all these colors for just for flowers. It's so awesome because I can order bulk white of a flower and I let them go outside on our paint tarp and they get to change it up and really make it unique. And so this has been a lifesaver for me as a floral teacher because flowers can be expensive. Obviously we all know that, but the more you order, the cheaper it gets, right? So for me to be able to order just one type, it will really be helpful. Okay, so I do let kids use this. Now you could just leave it like that. I think that's pretty adorable. However, the back side is still open and showing. And so you're gonna need to add a little bit of greenery, which Pittosporum I really like. I like to use Plumosa fern and stuff. And you can add it to try and hide those different spaces, okay? You can also add a little filler. These little feverfew are adorable. That's something that I've used in the past. And then you're gonna put this, spray it with some Crowning Glory, and you can put it in either a Corsage bag with a little bit of the shredded wax paper, or what I like to do, because we're dealing with teenagers here and they'll throw them in their vehicles, I like to get these Corsage boxes. It makes it a little bit fancier and more formal for the kids. Typically, once the bow has been made on maybe a Monday, Tuesday, because I have 50-minute periods, we'll do the corsage making. I'll demonstrate and then baby step them through that on our 90-minute block. And then on Fridays, they can finish up if they haven't. And then I have the kids do a whole blog and evaluate their work. So for the first corsage, I definitely encourage doing the spray carnations. Have fun with it though. You can do so many cool different designs. I know Gerbers can be expensive, and so I've ordered standard mums before, daisy type mums, and the kids just have so much fun spray painting and getting really unique and going wild with it. And so one, you need to get really good at this, but then have the kids have fun and come up with silly, wild things that you can add. Thanks so much for joining me. I hope that you learned something in this little corsage how-to video, and I hope you guys have fun with your classes. Bye.